the amount of deliveries we're seeing in COMEX. And like for the first 5 days of the August contract, we saw somewhere in the neighborhood of $6 or $7 billion worth of silver post for delivery. And much of it leaving COMEX. Now you're talking semi-trailers full. Something big is happening with silver and gold. And you can see it by the import numbers into the United States. I don't care what people say, it's tariffs, it's arbitrage. I say nonsense. Things are moving at a speed and in a direction that used to only be associated with the other countries, the Chinese, the Indians, the Russians. Now it's happening here. What goes through your mind now when you hear the word silver?
Well, a lot of people say, and I think they're correct, that we're talking about the pyramid, right? And gold is at the bottom. But underneath the gold is an even smaller triangle of silver in terms of value. Look, before gold was money, we talk about gold standard and going back to gold standard, and this is what we have to do. But really, it's not exactly that. It's really going back to silver is what we need to do. It's not that prices are rising. They only seem to rise within the inflationary system, within this illusory system that we're all stuck in, like a prisoner's dilemma, and we're all stuck in it. Prices are actually, they've been going down since 1960s. I mean, if you look at everything priced in money
and gold.
Money, I mean gold and silver, mostly gold, silver secondarily. But if you look at actual prices, they're going down. And so the prices are only going up if you insist on maintaining your economic existence within the illusion itself. And you could say, okay, fine. So let's say I want to get out of the illusion and just, take all of my salary and just buy gold with it every month. Well, I understand you can't do that because you need to be liquid, and gold is not as liquid as dollars. It would be if we were on a gold standard, but it's not. So then you could say, so then, we are losing out. But it's not just that prices have been staying stable in gold. They've been falling in almost every category. And anything priced in gold is going down. So even if your dollar salary is less, right, then the amount of gold would keep going down with however much you could put away every month. Let's say you earn like $5,000 a month, and you put, $1,000 a month away or $500 a month away in gold and silver over 20 years, and each month it's less and less gold and silver because they keep going up, but you need less and less gold and silver to even have higher standards of living. So you can live outside of this illusion. And that's what I'm trying to get people to understand. It's not about stacking and then becoming rich and then using gold and silver to accumulate dollars. We're getting out of the illusion as much as we can.
Imagine trying to escape the illusion by converting salary into gold each month. But gold is illiquid in today's dollars. We must straddle both worlds, enough liquidity to function within the system, yet enough separation to protect against its erosion. It's a tightrope walk. Keep one foot inside to pay bills, the other outside to shield enduring value. The challenge isn't hoarding precious metals, it's maintaining awareness that gold is still money, offering stability amid financial volatility, even if you can't fully step beyond the system.
It's like, like a drug addict, right? If you're talking to a drug addict, you have to understand how they think, but you can't go completely into their world. But you care for them, so you need to communicate with them in a way that they think that you're on their planet. But you have to. It's a very difficult position where we are, because we have to put a leg in the illusion and we have to keep a leg out of it and keep our minds together, which is it's very difficult even for people like us. It's all the more difficult for people who don't understand intuitively with the confidence that gold is actually money, and it still is today. That was the final piece that fell into place for me. That only, I think, like in 2022 or something like that, when I finally understood, when it finally slipped into place that everything is really based on gold and silver in this entire pyramid that we're living on. The higher we get on it, the thinner the air gets, and the more insane we become, keeping one leg in it while trying to keep one leg out. But we're keeping it together.
Especially when people say, why the hell do you have a leg over there to begin with? You're out of your mind. But you're exactly right. In fact, Rick Rule put out a very poignant post to your point just the other day. It said you'd be surprised how cheap real estate and food is if measured in gold. And that's very true. And I've recently talked about showing the price of a home in 2005, 20 years ago, and the price of gold. And using memory, the price of a home was $220,000 or whatever, and gold was just under 500. It was four something. And so the number was like 180 ounces of gold bought a house for you 20 years ago. Today, the house is 420,000. So the dollar is depreciated against real estate, sure. But that 180 ounces of gold today is worth 180 would be worth what? My math is wrong here. Hold on. It's 400 ounces of gold, 380 ounces of gold that you would get, which is worth $1 million plus. So what, 400 into 200? Yeah, almost over 400 ounces of gold would buy you that house 20 years ago, which is worth $1.5 million today. It buys you four houses almost.
20 years ago, a home priced at roughly $220,000 cost around 180 ounces of gold. Today, that same home costs nearly twice as much in dollars, yet 180 ounces of gold would now fetch four homes. The lesson: gold retains purchasing power far better than fiat. Real assets inflate, gold endures. This contrast highlights that real wealth isn't about accumulating dollars, it's about preserving purchasing power across time, where tangible assets like precious metals serve as a hedge against the erosion of paper value.
So I have something interesting to say about that. So I just finished a book. I think his name was Benjamin Roth, he wrote a diary of the Great Depression. It was just this lawyer who lived in Youngstown, Ohio. And he was talking, like in 1930, 1931, how the rabbi of his synagogue, I forgot what the name of the rabbi is, he talked about how much he was earning in 1930, and then he had to take a pay cut in 1931. I think it was like $5,000 a year, and he had to take a pay cut to like $4,000 or whatever it was. I forget the numbers, but I remember calculating that, so let's say he was earning X amount, whatever dollars it was. I calculated it in gold ounces. Today it would be $1 million a year. But this guy was earning in 1930, and he had to take a pay cut to like $800,000 a year. That was the Great Depression in gold terms, right? So the Great Depression was very, very difficult because people they couldn't get any dollars because it was tethered to gold, so that they couldn't get an income at all. So a lot of them had to be reduced to barter. And one of the best investments back then was treasury bonds. Right, because they were the only things that were staying. They weren't moving so much in value, but because they weren't moving nominally and everything else was moving down, the purchasing power of U.S. Treasury was skyrocketing. Right, so it's going to be the same thing this time, except we're going to go down a level in the pyramid from Treasury bonds being the best investment to money itself.
In studies of the Great Depression, lawyer-author Benjamin Roth chronicled the era's deflation in stark daily detail. In gold terms, income losses were staggering. What looked like modest cuts in dollars translated to immense reductions in stable value terms today. Meanwhile, government bonds retained purchasing power when paper currency collapsed. His diary underscores that in times of crisis, store-of-value assets, whether precious metals or safe bonds, are lifelines. Physical wealth, though cumbersome, offers resilience. Paper currency does not.
How about silver, something near and dear to all of us? Before you answer that question, I'll say something unusually unique is happening in silver, and that is the amount of deliveries we're seeing in COMEX. And like for the first 5 days of the August contract, we saw somewhere in the neighborhood of $6 or $7 billion worth of silver post for delivery, and much of it leaving COMEX. Now you're talking semi-trailers full. Something big is happening with silver and gold. And you can see it by the import numbers into the United States. I don't care what people say, it's tariffs, it's arbitrage. I say nonsense. Things are moving at a speed and in a direction that used to only be associated with the other countries, the Chinese, the Indians, the Russians. Now it's happening here. What goes through your mind now when you hear the word silver?
Well, a lot of people say, and I think they're correct, that we were talking about the pyramid, right? And gold is at the bottom. But underneath the gold is an even smaller triangle of silver in terms of value. Before gold was money, we talk about gold standard and going back to gold standard, and this is what we have to do. But really, it's not exactly that. It's really going back to silver is what we need to do.
August 2025 saw record-breaking COMEX gold and silver deliveries, over 1 million ounces delivered and nearly 2 million ounces withdrawn from storage in the first days alone. This isn't routine market churn. It signals growing institutional demand for physical possession. Whether central banks or well-capitalized investors, entities are increasingly choosing delivery over paper claims. These movements suggest a deeper reassessment of the role of tangible assets in a fragile monetary system.
Or what will be done. I understand that, trading silver coins is not economical in the sense that it's very bulky, and you can't actually exactly do that in today's world. But the human civilization started not on gold, but when we really started global trade and continents started trading in the Silk Road, and Africa started trading with Asia, and you really got a big economic system going, was based on silver. And what happened in 1873, right, with the crime against silver, or what exactly they call it? I think it was the crime against silver. What happened was, who owned silver back then? It was the poor and the middle class. That's what they used for their money. What did rich people do? How did they store their wealth? They stored it in gold because they had too much silver. They couldn't store it all. And so they had a lot of gold. So what's the best way, if the middle class and the poor, and there's a lot more middle class and poor than there are rich, what's the best way to take purchasing power from the middle class and the poor and give it to the rich? If you're on a silver standard, move to a gold standard, right? That's how you do it. But everything that the government does in order to keep the pyramid going is basically a theft of the middle class and the poor, for the favor of the rich. So at the end of this, it's going to be a silver standard, not necessarily a gold standard. Going back to gold would be better where we are now. But the real end of the inflationary system is when credit is going to collapse.
Gold may be the foundation, but silver is emerging as the next monetary frontier. Historically undervalued, silver served as global trade's backbone before the gold standard's rise. Today, physical demand for silver is surging. Heavy COMEX deliveries and shrinking inventories underscore its rising strategic importance. Some foresee a return toward the 15-to-1 gold-to-silver exchange ratio, an economically natural relationship ushering in silver's monetary resurgence. As fiat systems falter, silver may absorb a disproportionate share of lost purchasing power, accelerating its emergence as a modern store of value.
When credit collapses, dollars don't work, and if dollars don't work, none of the other currencies work either, because that's what we say reserve currency, right? That's currency that's in the basement of all these other central banks. So when the dollar falls, or these other currency falls, all credit falls, all credit derivatives, and then you're left with all the purchasing power of all that lost purchasing power gets vacuumed into silver, even more than gold, which is why we're going to go eventually to very near a 15-to-1 ratio, which is the historic exchange ratio, monetary exchange ratio between gold and silver. That's natural economic law. That's not
coming out of the ground right now. It's 7-to-1. My buddy Keith Newmeyer swears by it as CEO of First Majestic.
And we could actually go there. I mean, we've been there in the past briefly. Like during economic crises of the past, after major wars, it did go to 7-to-1 briefly. I don't think that's an equilibrium, but I do think it's possible to get there.
How close are we, you think, to some form, one of the pushbacks that we get from people who lack maybe the proper perspective in this industry, people who come in this industry looking to profit, which is not the way to do it. I've looked at gold and silver my whole career as wealth that has outlived everything the world has ever thrown at it. 2 world wars, German hyperinflation, the Great Depression, every pandemic. It was mentioned, gold and silver cumulatively, if anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, it's you. I think between the two of them over 700 times in the Bible. It is money. I think even, isn't the Hebrew word for money silver?
Kesef, yeah.
Yes. So, the people who listen to the things that people like you and I talk about, and it doesn't materialize through the overt central bank, commercial bank manipulation, all the goings on COMEX and the LBMA, the counterintuitive nature of it. And I've talked ad nauseum why I believe the price of silver has been held down, and that people who want to know how I feel about that can easily figure that out. But in your mind, how close are we to that? And what does the United States look like, maybe in your mind, 5 years, 10 years? I know I asked you two questions there, but to me they're kind of related. So where do you think silver goes? How close are we to it? And what does this country look like? Is there possibility of getting to the other side, or do we have to go, in your mind, through some form of a reckoning period in order to, get to the other side?